Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome. An amazing week of working with the Ascended Masters. I call it the path to illumination. And so I'm excited today as I bring my co-host in, James Gilmore. Good morning, James. Good morning, James. How are you?
I'm doing absolutely fabulous and excited to be fellowshipping with everyone and our guest, Peter Mount Shasta.
Good morning, Peter. Let's get ready. And let me just remind you all that we're having a whole week of journeying with the Ascended Masters. And we're going to have different guest speakers every week. And we're also going to have an evening call on Thursday evening at 8 to bring in a special guest as well. And so I want you to invite a friend, research the information, learn more so that we can awaken and ask and use this as another modality as we assist and be navigated through this journey of life because the universe is friendly to our desires. All right, James, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can.
Yes. This is James Gilmore. So one of my favorite places on the whole planet is Mount Shasta. And during one of those trips, some people that I was attending a conference with, I said, do you know a guy named Peter Mount Shasta? And the person said, yes, I just was spending time with him last week, and they introduced me to him, and we met at Berryville, had some fellowship, and so when we conceived the idea of having a week with the Ascended Masters and having a guest each day who had written about Ascended Masters or was teaching about them, it was definitely Peter was definitely one of the first choices. So we're very blessed to have Peter on here. He's the author of a wonderful book called Adventures of a Modern Mystic.
Center our mind. Centering our thoughts. Calling forth the God presence, the I am presence of who we all are. Recognizing that there really is only one power, one presence in this whole universe. And in this line, we recognize our divine source as God, the good, the omnipotent, everywhere present, knowing that there is not a spot where God is not. So as we become still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. And as I come before the divine source, the presence and the power of who we are, the truth, I ask that every word of my mouth, every meditation of my heart be so acceptable in thy sight. As I call forth the power and the presence of the Holy Spirit in this call, calling forth the Ascended Masters, the archangels, the angels, the master guides, and the spirit guides, we say, come as we invite and invoke you this morning. Good morning, archangels. Good morning, Ascended Masters. And good morning to our master guides and spirit guides and angels. Good morning. We invite and invoke your presence as we give honor and presence and gratitude to your presence in this call. We thank you for our guest speaker this morning. As we anoint our guest speaker, asking that every word that will come from his mouth will be your words, Holy Spirit. Come, consciousness of Christ. We ask that his thoughts be your thoughts this morning. Come, consciousness of Christ. We ask you that you anoint his hands today, God. Oh, that you anoint his hands, that everything he touched will turn to gold. Not just gold, but platinum gold. Oh, come, consciousness of Christ. We ask you to anoint his feet, that everywhere he to tread, his feet will be upon holy ground on this day. Oh, come, consciousness of Christ. We ask you to open up our hearts today to receive your word through your Son, who you sent to the earth today to cross the path of the love journey, to speak to our hearts today, God. Oh, we thank you right now for your presence through Peter right now. Oh, we thank you for his presence as you right now, showing up as you in this right now space. We thank you for the presence of you in this right now, because there is power in collective consciousness. And we come together in this oneness, in one mind, one love, knowing that only you exist. And we thank you because we know all there is you. So in this divine right now moment, we give gratitude as we open our heart, thanking you for all that is. Thanking you for the love that surrounds this call right now. Thanking you for the light and the energy that is transmitted from the earth and from the universe into this call in this right now moment. Thanking you for all the enlightened beings who are surrounding us right now. Opening our hearts to the presence of all that is around us right now. And since surrendering to the spirits and the energetic expression that is sending light and love to this call, we just thank you right now to each and every enlightened being. We thank you right now for this opportunity to come together. We thank you right now that we're so blessed that even the blessed will call us blessed. That when we walk today, that they will see our light because they will know us by our light. We thank you as our light will shine so bright in this right now moment. I ask you to come, consciousness of Christ, and speak through Peter into our hearts today. That we will open our hearts and hear every word that you will speak through your Son on this day. In the mighty, powerful consciousness of Christ, I say amen.
I was going to say that's the biggest blessing I've gotten in a long time. I got like goosebumps all over from that. That was a real blessing. You kind of hit the nail on the head, Janine. I was going to lead up to that, and you started out the call with the invoking the I Am presence. So that was very beautiful. If we could get even 1/10 of the world's population, even 1/100th of the world's population to start out the day like that, we'd be in the kingdom of heaven. So, that was a real blessing, and I thank you for that. I know you wrote a book on abundance, didn't you? I Was Born to Be Rich, something like that. And
yes.
So a lot of people are doing the, what they call the law of attraction. And I would like to sort of add something to that, is like a lot of people are doing affirmations, and that implies separation, that like even the word, the law of attraction, means there's something out there you have to attract to you, and you've got to try hard. It's like far away over there, and you've got to bring it to you, like a job or money or whatever it is, recognition. But the whole essence of the I Am, which I think you got in that affirmation, is it's already ours. When you realize you are one with the universe, that all the wealth and happiness and love of the universe is one with your I Am presence already. All you have to do is accept it, get out of the negative thoughts out of the way, that you're not worthy, that you don't deserve it, and then it will be yours. So, I'm thinking of replacing the term affirmation with an acceptance. I accept God's wealth and God's love, and I accept my divinity. It's not something I need to struggle to draw to me because I'm already one with it if I can just let go of my ideas of limitation. So, but it's taken me a long time to get to that realization. And, I was raised in a suburb of New York City, an abundant, kind of wealthy suburb where my friends' families, they were, owners of multinational corporations and, high-power business executives. And I saw those people suffering, that they were no happier than anybody else. In fact, I think they were, most of them, not very happy at all. It's kind of like what Thoreau said, the majority of people lead lives of quiet desperation. But I saw that my education was preparing me just to fit into that spot and be just like them, and I just, in my heart, I wanted something else, something different, and I didn't know what that was, And the strange thing is, there was this guy that my mother used to have come and clean the house once a week, this African-American guy, and he was so beautiful. He was my inspiration when I was a kid, when I was growing up. I didn't know what it was he had, but I just used to like to hang out around him. And it wasn't until many years later I came home from college, And I wanted to find him because I remembered what he had, and I was able to talk to him on the phone. And it turned out he was actually a great singer, and he toured the world in part of the choir. And but that was only a few months out of the year. The rest of the time, he had to make a living, cleaning people's homes. And I said, now I know what it is that you have, that I want it to be near you all the time. It's that quality of love. And he just emanated that love. And I said, that is gold, and that's what I want. So he was like really my first inspiration that there was something beyond just materialism, acquiring more things and fame and status and things like that. So it wasn't till, well, actually, I tried prayer. I went to different churches, and I never had any luck with it. I would pray. The preacher would say, let's pray for so-and-so in the hospital, and that person would die. Almost invariably when the preacher prayed for someone, they would die, And I said, he's a professional. If he can't make prayer work, how am I going to? I'm only an amateur. How am I going to make it work? So I didn't really have much faith in prayer or believe in God. My father was a biology teacher, and he didn't really talk about God. But when I studied biology, I realized everything, even from the cell up to the largest organism, was organized according to some amazing laws. So there had to be some kind of intelligence that made things work. But I really didn't know what that was. And I kept hearing about the light, though. You'd say, have you seen the light? Yes. Well, I wanted to see that light. And, but I didn't see it until I started writing poetry. I was living in New York City on the Lower East Side by Tompkins Square, which at that time in the late 60s was kind of a war zone. But and when I would get inspired, I would see that light. It would go up my spine, and the whole world would kind of disappear, and I'd see that light. And I said, wow, that's the light I've been hearing about, but I couldn't make it come when I wanted to. It would just be very, very rare. And then eventually I heard on the radio, I heard this interview with Baba Ramdas, who had been this Harvard professor, Richard Alpert, who experimented with LSD in a clinical setting. And he was talking about meeting this old man in a blanket sitting on a hillside in India, and this guy knew all about him. Knew what he'd been dreaming, knew about his mother that had passed on the year before. And when Ramdas met him, he felt that love, that divine love, and he burst into tears. And he wanted some kind of complicated spiritual practice. He wanted to be told, go in a cave for 3 years and, do this mantra or meditate, something like that, do this real complicated yoga. And so he said, how do I raise my kundalini? The kundalini is that hidden God power. It's, they say, is coiled at the base of the spine, and every yogi is trying to awaken that so they can experience that light. And this old man, whose name was Neem Karoli Baba, he said, you want to raise your kundalini, love people and feed them. And that's not what Ramdas wanted to hear, but Neem Karoli Baba was definitely the example of that. He loved and fed everyone that came to him. And his path is very simple. Just help your fellow man, really. And through that, you can awaken to the love in your own heart. So I toured around India, actually, back and forth for a couple of years, and met some amazing beings. One of them being Anandamayi Ma, this woman that I had the good fortune to meet several times. And she gave me the most tremendous blessing because she looked into my eyes, and I felt something that I had never felt before. I knew that she was seeing the God in me, And I went home and I said, I want to see in myself what she's seeing in me. And that really gave my meditation tremendous inspiration. And I realized after that that's one of the greatest things you can do for another human being is to see them as God, just to see the light in them and the love, and accept that that's a living master in front of you, even if they don't know it. And you don't need to say anything to do that. In fact, someone could even be arguing with you, giving you a hard time, and you just hold that focus that God is in that person's heart. You just see a great golden sun blazing in their heart and see their I am presence above their head also shining light down into them and establishing that focus in their heart. And you'll give them a great blessing. So she did that for me, and that was a big turning point in my life. And then a year later, I went to visit Sathya Saibaba, who was this very strange-looking guy. He had an afro like Jimi Hendrix. I never saw another Indian that looked like that, but he knew all about me and would come to me in dreams and give me guidance. And he's the one that told me to meditate on the I am. And that happened because I've been sitting there at his feet for a couple of months, and I had all kinds of amazing things happen, but it was getting time for me to come back to the States, and my visa was expiring. And I thought, I've been here all this time, and I've been telling him what I thought I needed. And I have never actually asked him what I needed. So I wrote him a note. What should I meditate on? Then I also asked him, where should I go and what should I do? And tell me all my past lives and who am I going to be in this life and all that kind of stuff. And this time he came right up to me and he took my note. And immediately after he took the note, somebody came up to me, just walked up to me, handed me this book that was open, and underlined on that page, it said, meditate on the I am that I am. And I said, well, that's my answer, what to meditate on. And the book was The Impersonal Life, which is a book that I highly recommend. Basically, it says, forget about following gurus and, forget about hero worship, that type of thing. What you need to do is find out who you are and get in touch with the guru within yourself. And so, he didn't answer my other questions, where to go and what to do, but as I meditated on I am, everything seemed to open before me. And I kept meditating on I am, but I didn't really have any kind of dramatic results, At that time, meditating on I am was more of an intellectual idea. And I said, what does that really mean, I am? Is that me? So at that point, I didn't quite realize the difference between the lower self and the higher self. So I thought, it sounds kind of egotistical, meditate on I am God, So I kept meditating on that. And then I got back to the States, and I was staying on somebody's floor in in Berkeley, actually. And that was probably 73. And I had stayed with a yogi in the Himalayas for a while who was getting ready to leave his body. He could leave his body consciously and at will and travel to other planes. And I thought, and then he was getting ready actually to completely leave his physical body because he said his work on the earth was done. And when I got back to the West, I felt like it was so hard for me to relate to being in Berkeley, where it seemed like everyone was just chasing after material things. And I thought, I don't really want to be here anymore. I feel like I've done everything on the earth plane I wanted to do. I found that, having a Porsche didn't make me happy, and, having Persian rugs and silver candelabra, that didn't make me happy. And I just didn't really see getting in the rat race to be rich. And because I had known a lot of rich people when I was a kid, and they weren't happy. So I was meditating one morning, and this ball of light appeared in front of me, and I heard this voice, go to Muir Woods. And that's this redwood forest across the Golden Gate Bridge in Marin County. So this was about 7 in the morning, just about the time we're talking now. And I got in my old van and drove across the bridge, went to Muir Woods, and it was pouring rain. There was nobody else there. And I walked down the path, and I climbed up the hillside, and I found an old, huge redwood tree that was hollow inside. I guess there had been a fire, and it hollowed out the tree. So I got inside the tree to get out of the rain, and I sat there doing this Vipassana meditation, which you do with the eyes open, just looking down at the ground and just observing your breath. You feel the in-breath and the out-breath. And that's still a meditation that I do that I find very helpful for quieting the mind. You just feel the rise and fall of your chest. You feel the breath going in and the breath going out. And if a thought starts to come into your mind, you just put a label on it, thinking. Or like if you feel a pain somewhere, like in your knee or something, you just label it thinking. Or any sound that you hear, thinking. And then you come back to the breath. You just feel the gentle rise and fall. And gradually your mind slows down. So for most of us, most of the time, there's a constant movie going on. That's the movie of our lives, and we're completely identified with it. We're the main character as well as the director in that movie. And when you do this meditation, the movie slows down and it starts to flicker a little bit. Like the old movies, they're going 16 frames a second, but if you can slow it down to 4 frames a second, there's a flicker. And then if you could slow it down to 1 frame a second, you see that there's a space between the frames where there's nothing. And as you do that with your mind, as the thoughts slow down, you start to realize that outside the human mind, there's divine mind. So in that gap between the thoughts, you can contact your real self, which is unlimited. And that's the expanded God consciousness of your I am presence that's everywhere and knows everything. And so I was doing that meditation, and I set an intention before the meditation. I said, I want to know if I can leave my body now or if there's any reason to stay in the earth plane and hold on to this body. And I never really had any results praying to anybody, but I thought it would be a good idea. This is a serious decision whether to live or die, so I should call for assistance in case anybody is actually up there listening to me. So I called on Jesus and Buddha and Krishna and Rama and, all these ascended masters I'd heard of. I've been a guest at the Theosophical Society in India. And I did call on Saint Germain, and I called on Neem Karoli Baba, and, every guru and God that I could think of. And then I did this Vipassana meditation with my eyes open, but just looking down at the forest floor. And all of a sudden, I saw 2 feet in front of me. And that was strange because if someone had walked up through the forest, I would have heard the twigs breaking and the leaves crackling and things like that. So, I looked up, and there was this young guy there. He was wearing jeans and a suede jacket. And the strange thing is, even though it was raining, he wasn't wet. And he knew my name. He said, Peter, I've come here to answer your prayer. And he said, I am the part of the Godhead that has been sent to answer your prayer. And he said, I understand you want to leave your body, and I can grant that wish. But before I do that, I want to show you something. And he touched me on the third eye, and the next thing I knew, I was standing outside my physical body, and there was my physical body inside the tree, still meditating, and he and I were standing outside it. And then he put his arm around me, and the next thing I knew, we were leaving the earth. We were going up. And pretty soon we were in this realm where there were these beautiful balls of light. They were like opalescent pearls. Each one was maybe a couple of feet in diameter. And they were glowing, giving off these beautiful colors. And in this realm, there was just the feeling of bliss, just great joy and love. And I realized that these balls of light were the I am presence of beings that had at one time been on the earth that were now liberated, and they were in this divine realm. And it's like they were in a state of permanent meditation, just complete absorption in their God nature. And I said, this is it. This is where I want to be. And he smiled, and at that moment, I started to hear this crying coming from someplace. And I tried to ignore it, but it got louder and louder. And then I looked to see where this crying was coming from, and I saw the earth below me. It was just a little blue ball. And I saw the tremendous suffering on the earth and all of the tears and suffering. And my heart went out, and I said, oh, I want to go back to earth and help people. And he smiled, and he said, you made the right choice. Because of this, we will be working closely together. But I'm going to send you someplace for training so you can be of service to me. And the next thing I know, I was back in my body inside the tree in Muir Woods, and there was this young man standing in front of me. And he said, go to Mount Shasta. The first person that you meet there will tell you what to do next. And then he took a few steps backward, and he said, now I will show you who I really am. And right in front of me, he changed into this being wearing a white robe, who I recognized from the front of the book Unveiled Mysteries. And his name didn't really come to mind. I was in such a state of shock from this experience, but I did recognize that he was familiar. And then he just faded out. He disappeared. It was kind of like Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars, And so there I was in Muir Woods, and I got in my car. There was still nobody in the parking lot. It was still very early in the morning. And the next thing I know, I was approaching Mount Shasta, and I went into a place, it was called the Breakfast House, and this young guy came up to me, and he said, you're supposed to see this lady by the name of Pearl. And I thought, well, I don't know who she is, but I was told to do what the first person told me to do, so I better see her. And he owned the health food store. He let me use his phone, and Pearl said, come right up. And I said, wow, that's amazing. You call for an appointment, and someone says, come up. So she lives in this little house at the end of the street. And in fact, I just wrote a book about Pearl. It's called Lady Master Pearl, my teacher. But she had this quaint little house at the end of the street, and it's a dead end. And the house was behind a big hedge. And I knocked on the door, and this sweet little old lady answers. And she said, why, come in, dear. I've been expecting you. And I said, you've been expecting me? What do you mean? And she said, well, the Master Saint Germain came to me this morning and said he was sending someone to see me. And I said, that's pretty unusual. And so we sat down, and she said, tell me what brought you here. So I told her about my experience in Muir Woods and this man who had appeared in front of me. And she said, and who do you think that was? And I said, well, it's that guy you have a picture of on the wall. And she said, well, that's the beloved Master Saint Germain. And I said, oh, yes, I realize now who that was. And so she said that in a sense it was an answer to her prayer, because a lot of people have been telling her she should follow the Hindu path, that she should sit around in a circle chanting Om and things like that. And she was wondering if she should do that. And Saint Germain had told her that morning, today you will have your answer. And so as we were sitting there, she said, would you like to meditate? And now, the way I used to meditate was I'd sit in lotus position on the floor. And, so I started to get off the chair onto the floor. And she said, you don't need to sit on the floor to meditate. And I said, really? And she said, in fact, you don't even need to close your eyes. She said, keep looking into my eyes. And as I did that, this beautiful light came into the room. And she said, turn your attention inward to the center of your being, to the area of your heart, and feel this golden light there, and say, I am the living light. And as I did that, it's almost like I saw this light come in the room. And I said, that's it. That's what I've been looking for. Nobody in India taught me how to do that. All the gurus I visited, they didn't teach me that. And every time I said, I am the living light, I would see that light come in the room. And I said, at last, that's the same light I saw when I was very inspired writing poetry. But then I had to just wait for the inspiration to come. I didn't know how to invoke it. And here was Pearl teaching me how to call that forth. And she said, what you put your attention on is what you become. So if your attention is on the light, you become the light. If your attention is on love, you become love. So then she said, those are the magic words, I am, and whatever you connect with those words is what you start to create in your world. So I studied with her for many years, and she gave me those teachings in great detail. And gradually, years later, after she passed on, I studied Tibetan Buddhism, and I saw that those teachings are really hidden in many of the ancient teachings of the Far East, in Tibetan Buddhism and in Hinduism. They all have that, but it's hidden. You have to wade through a lot of other complicated teachings and do these preliminary practices before you find out what they're really talking about. And I did some of these complicated Tibetan Buddhist Vajrayana practices, and I saw that hidden in the core of these teachings, where you're meditating on various gods, you actually are supposed to realize that you are one with them, that these gods are really a part of your own nature. So like they would meditate, for example, on the white Tara, or the green Tara, or the red Tara, whatever it is. There's a black Tara and a yellow Tara and so on. And these are different aspects of the feminine aspect of the enlightened mind.
Linda, give me 1 second. Let James say goodbye to Peter. Peter, thank you so much. You did an awesome job. And James want to say, and then Linda, you take it out.
Okay. Thank you so much, Peter, for accepting our invitation, and we'll be in touch, my friend.
Okay. Many blessings to you all.